Welcome to Renaissance City, a Prowlers and Paragons actual play radio drama here on the TTRP Theater Twitch channel. TTRP Theater is a group of actors, artists, and gamers from all walks of life that collaborate to bring you compelling content. I am Duke Walter, your game master. Myself and a group of friends have come together to spin some tales, have some laughs, and hopefully entertain you with our stories of superheroes. The Prowlers and Paragons system is a rules-light role-playing game that allows us to live out the fantasy of being the heroes and villains. Before we get into this first game, I want to say thank you to Evil Beagle Games for being generous enough to share their latest version with us, Prowlers and Paragons Ultimate Edition. Their successful Kickstarter recently closed, but you can still get on there and support them through their pledge manager. Check them out at evilbeaglegames.com for more information about this and their other products. The reason that I chose PNPUE as the system to use for this game is twofold. One, my friends are all great storytellers, artists, and actors, and one of the main mechanics of the Prowlers and Paragons system is that the narrative is sometimes turned over to the players. This differs from a lot of standard systems in that I, as the game master, won't always have control. I like this aspect of the game. It makes me think on my feet, and it also means that there's a lot of improvising when it comes to each issue. Two, some of my friends have never played an RPG in their life, and none of us have played this system. The system is simple enough that within an hour, most anyone can pick it up and start playing. And I want the creators at Evil Beagle to keep making awesome stuff, so maybe, just maybe, I can get some of you to support them too. There are a few rules that you all should know about before we get into the episode. Firstly, this is a D6 system. That means that you only need the traditional 6-sided cubes that you find in almost every board game you've ever played. No special dice needed. The die rolls equate to successes. Each trait, ability, and power have a number of dice that the player has predetermined. When needed, the player will roll that many 6-sided dice. All even numbers showing are considered successes, while odd numbers are failures. In this game, when a player rolls a 6, they get to re-roll the die for a chance at additional successes. If the player nets 3 or more successes than the threshold or the number of successes that I, as the game master, roll, then the player gets to narrate the scene. If it is 1 to 2 more, then the actor gets to narrate, but I get to embellish. If it is 0 or -1 net successes, then I get to narrate, and the player gets to embellish. And if it is -2 net successes, then I, the GM, get to narrate the entire scene. Embellishment allows both sides to add narration in a small but meaningful way, but embellishments cannot contradict the narration or make it true but effectively meaningless. You'll see what I mean as we play more and more of this game. Our first episode is a bit of history about one of the heroes of Renaissance City, Saint Shadow. Jason Abramowitz, affectionately referred to as Jazz, is playing this character. Please note that this is our first recording, and so the audio quality is a bit rough in places. If you want to help support us on Patreon, please search TTRP Theater, all one word, on Patreon. You can help us to upgrade our equipment, support other artists, and continually create new content. Now, let's get into the show. Our first character that we're introducing is going to be played by my good friend, Jazz Abramowitz. Jazz, how are you?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Good. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I currently live in Jacksonville, Florida. I'm deep into the South, which is kind of weird for like a lifetime Midwesterner. I am an actor, I'm a writer, I'm a filmmaker. I like to play games. And I'm super looking forward to getting into this stuff.
You and I have known each other for a long time. And I mean, we go back as far as the late 90s. We were roommates in college, but we've never played a role-playing game before. And you haven't played a lot of role-playing games yourself, have you?
I haven't. I think I've played maybe 2 or 3 campaigns my entire life. The first campaigns that I ever played were when I lived in Lawrence. So that'd be, sometime around the year 2000. At this point, I know we did one D&D campaign and then one campaign that was like a Space Odyssey kind of thing, and I can't remember the name.
Cool.
But I played through those campaigns entirely. I really enjoyed myself. And then as things happened, people got busy and the gaming crew just kind of dissipated. Never really had an opportunity to jump back in and play again.
Well, I'm super stoked to get this going. I'm so glad you said yes. So let's jump in feet first, man. Let's talk about your character a little bit. I know it's so funny
because I'm so tickled by him. But yeah, okay. Alabaster
Reginald. Say the whole thing.
Alabaster Reginald Whitingale. Like arguably the most Caucasian character or human in the world, possibly.
Possibly.
I definitely feel like he and his family are descendants of the original Mayflowers. Like, that's how white they are.
Okay. I can get that. I can get in with that. So
Yeah.
Old money.
One of the first families to really settle in Detroit. They actually were fortunate enough to buy up a lot of some property, some really strategic property on the Detroit River, which we know historically in the 20s was a huge deal because that was Detroit's port and a lot of trade came through there. Right. So they have some warehouses that are on the river, and they deal historically, they dealt with everything from grain and paprika, saffron, different herbs and stuff, and eventually also fine art, jewelry, enjoyed trade lanes with Europe and clearly also inbound and outbound within the U.S. And so a lot of money flowing through their family, and basically have always been a wealthy family from the time that they established themselves in the U.S.
Nice. Okay, so this game requires, as part of your build, that you give me, as the game master, at least 3 connections, and they're basically NPCs for those of you listening that have played Dungeons and Dragons or other games. The characters have to create at least 3 NPCs for me to kind of help populate the world, because in a comic book setting, without people to populate it, it's not a very interesting story. And it also helps to keep them based in reality a little bit. Let's talk about your parents. Your parents are who you gave me as one of your connections. I think your mom. Is that right?
I gave you both father and mother.
Father and mother. Okay.
Father is Lawton Higgins Whitingale. I think it's important for people to understand that Alabaster is not a Lawton Higgins Jr. or the second, and that's important for the 1920s and for their family history. There's a reason for that. But Lawton Higgins Whitingale is his father. Edith Marigold Whitingale is his mother. She was born as Stephenshire. She's a Stephenshire originally.
Excellent. And since you're old money and this time period, you guys live in a very palatial estate. Your family hobnobs with all of the elites. Like your parents probably have, personal relationships with people like Henry Ford, Alfred P. Sloan, political connections, that sort of thing. But within your home, as is wont for ultra rich people, but especially ultra rich people during this time period, you guys also have a bunch of servants in the house too. Just off the top of your head, I know we didn't really talk a lot about this, but how do you feel about the servants in your house and around your property?
At least originally, as he's growing up, Alabaster didn't know any different. So clearly there was a nanny or a nursemaid who more or less raises him, as is pretty typical in that time period for wealthy families. There are also servants, probably Black Americans predominantly, who are servants in their houses. And then they have groundskeepers. There's probably chambersmaids, cooks. I mean, this is a very wealthy family. So I think in his early life, Al doesn't really know any other way. He's never been exposed to anybody except his own family and then families that are just like him. And so it seems very normal and natural for him in his early life to be surrounded by servants and workers at his estate or his family's estate. As he grows older, he begins to feel very differently about them. And some of the history there, and we'll probably get into that. He begins to feel very differently around the classist divide in which he begins to realize exists as he grows older.
So you are probably 12, 13 years old. And as a young boy, you have started to develop this tendency for theft,
Right.
whether it stems from just thrill seeking or, I mean, is it thrill seeking? Is it because you're a spoiled brat and you think you can get away with anything you want to? I mean, what is it that starts you down that road?
Generally speaking, there are certain events that happen to Al as around that age, and he decides that he needs to take some action into his own hands, and he ends up kind of breaking into an institution to try and get some information. And what he finds out is that he was actually really good at it, and it's probably the first thing in his life that he knows that he's good at and has nothing to do with the wealth or the privilege that he was born into. And so there's a certain amount of pride that he feels in being able to do this. But then there's also a thrill-seeking component, because as he grows older, but especially at that time, he continues to push himself and take higher risks in order to see just who can catch him in this. And in many ways, as we all tend to do at that age, he has that feeling of invincibility, as well as a sort of a complex of, fuck you, daddy, should he ever get caught.
Okay, so let's play a little scene out. You are home, and it's the middle of the week. Your mother she's been gone most of the morning at her garden club meeting, and there are several people in the house that are tidying up and gardening, and just the general work that's done throughout the day in your home. It's nothing is out of place, and you have decided that you're feeling a little rebellious, and you have stolen a few things here and there from maybe friends' houses or your parents' friends' houses, like when they forced you to go along to some boring ass party, or they forced you to go along to some social event at some ridiculous hall, and they put you on display and made you dress up in your least favorite tuxedo, and right, and you have been maybe formulating this plan that you're going to get back at your parents. And what is something in the house that you would definitely think that not only would it be noticed, but would have an impact on your parents if it was to turn up missing?
My father's father, so my grandfather, left my father upon his death an ivory pipe that he got from his father, passed down, and is rumored, at least, to have been a gift from a duke in England.
Okay.
And I know that my father would just be livid and also completely worried should that particular object disappear.
Okay. Is this pipe on display somewhere, or is it something that he actually uses and smokes out of?
No, it is for display only. Okay. And it is on display, but it's in kind of a strange place in the house. So he has a kind of a trophy room that is a room that is connected to his study. It's behind a locked door most of the time, and then or the door is locked most of the time. And then that particular object is a centerpiece behind a glass case, which is also locked. And it's the centerpiece of a wall that is mostly his trophy hunting head mounts. And he liked to hunt elephants in Africa. Dad did. So he's got a lot of different ivory objects, but the ivory pipe is dead center of this display behind a locked glass door.
Okay. Perfect, man. That was great. Jesus Christ, that was amazing. Right off the top of the dome. So, okay, Alabaster, you have decided that you're gonna show them, and you're gonna get that ivory pipe.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you get there?
This house, you can imagine, as you described it, it's a large palatial house. And of course, I spend a lot of time as a young person connecting with the only people in my house who aren't my parents, which are most of the servants. The servants' quarters are traditionally going to be either under or behind the house. In this case, I'm hanging out in the kitchen, which is behind most of the house. So that means that I have to actually go through the entire house to get to the eastern wing, which is where my father's study is. Once I get to the study, if his study door is open, then I have to go to a second set of doors, which is his trophy room, and I have to get into those doors. But if the study doors are closed, then I also have to find a way to get into the study.
Okay, awesome. So first I want you to roll your covert.
All right.
So the covert talent in this game is basically kind of your stealth. It encompasses a lot of the standard thief kind of ideas. Yeah, go ahead. So roll and tell me how many successes you get.
Odds are successes, yes. Evens.
No, evens.
All right. Let's see. And I'm rolling 7 of them, correct?
Yes.
4 successes.
Did you roll any 6s?
I did. I rolled 1 6.
Okay, well, here's the cool thing about 6s is that you get to roll 6s again.
Oh, all right. No, still 4 successes.
4 successes. Okay, that's enough. Tell us how you get into the study door.
As I walk through the quarters, I'm looking back and forth. As I walk through the hallways to get to the study, I'm looking back and forth around. I want to make sure that's important to me that nobody else sees me, not any other servants, because there are mouths all over the house. And so the first thing I have to do is be very, very careful and be as sneaky as possible to make sure that nobody sees me. Reality is probably nobody's paying attention to me because I'm just a stupid 13-year-old kid, but I'm taking it very, very seriously. And so, as you can imagine, Alabaster is crouched down. He is moving as quiet as a mouse. You can barely hear his footsteps as he crouches behind couches and around end tables, looking out to make sure that nobody's finding him. And as he approaches the study door, he goes to check the handle, and of course, it's locked. A lot of the locks in his house are actually easily picked with a bobby pin, which he had previously taken from his mother's bathroom. And so he breaks out the bobby pin and attempts to unlock the door.
Perfect. The door comes unlocked, and you know that this is a big, heavy door, so you're going to have to be extra careful with opening it and closing it, but you do that deftly, and there's no one that notices you as you make your way into the study. You get inside the study, and it's not an unfamiliar place to you. You don't spend a lot of time in here. This is very much kind of the private sanctum of your father, and there are some very large overstuffed chairs, but there are also some very expensive antiques in here as well. 2 walls completely lined with books, all sorts of trophies of various sorts. Your father is an excellent marksman, so he has some shooting trophies in here. It's the next room where all of his, animal trophies are, but on the floor there's a very large lion skin. It's very decked out, and you've always been kind of nervous in this room because your father knows where everything is in this room all of the time.
That's right.
You very deftly and quietly close the door behind you and turn the lock, and across the room is the second door that leads into the trophy room.
So I approach the trophy door. I'm looking at everything. I'm making sure that I'm leaving no evidence of my being there. In fact, it's almost obsessive to the point where if I see a fiber on the carpet move from left leaning to right leaning, I'm going to change it before I even approach the door.
Okay. if that's the case, then I want you to roll investigation.
All right.
So investigation in this game is kind of intuitive as to what it is. It's uncovering clues, questioning or interrogating people, analyzing, making deductive or intuitive leaps. But this one's going to be a big one for you personally, for your character personally. So,
all right, here we go. I have 2 successes. One is a 6. I'm going to re-roll that one. That would be 3 total successes.
Nice. 3 is what I was going to set the bar at. So you are successful. You know what I mean? You make sure that you cover your tracks on the way in and you get to the other door. Roll covert again because this door is also locked.
All right. First roll. Oof. 1 success. That's it. No 6s. Oh, no, wait. I got 2 more dice to roll. Hang on.
But you have 2 more dice to roll. You got 7 altogether.
3 successes. 1 is a 6 and 3 successes total.
3 successes. Okay. That's enough to get the door unlocked. This door is almost exactly the same as the other door, except that carved into the door handle is the face of an elephant. So the door handles themselves are ivory. It's really, really intricate. And you've always been kind of fascinated by the tiny little etching work that has been done into this door handle. But you are able to get the door open and get it quietly closed again, and you are standing in the trophy room. You know, this is a time when there aren't necessarily alarms or anything like that, but this is also the inner sanctum of your father. And so you are, again, wildly aware of your steps and making sure that you disturb nothing. There in the center of the room, there sits, and they're stuffed in a way that it looks like they're attacking each other. One is a leopard and the other is a hyena. And the way that they're mounted and stuffed, teeth bared, it's a vicious scene. Around that on the floor, covered in zebra skins, there are stuffed baboons in here and 2 large bull elephant heads hanging, one on the wall on your right and one on the wall on your left. You've always been intrigued and impressed and kind of scared knowing that your father could take down these animals himself. Right. You've never been invited on a hunt. He has never really taught you to shoot guns necessarily. But this room just kind of has that aura of fear for you a little bit.
I'm probably 80 pounds soaking wet at this stage in my life. Right. And so these things seem like giant dinosaur monsters to me almost.
Yeah, right. These guys will kill you.
Right.
If they were to come to life,
or
you
if my
die.
dad caught me in here, I feel like I would receive the same fate.
Right. And you're sure of that because these things are all dead and stuffed, and you know that they're not going to come to life.
My head would be on the wall next, is what I think. But yes. I want to do it anyway. And where the pipe is encased in a giant glass case, which is perfectly cleaned and no smudges anywhere on it.
You make your way around the room, making sure not to step on any of the rugs. You know, you're very, very careful about disturbing anything in the room, and you get around to the glass case where the ivory pipe is set. What do you do?
So I'm looking at the glass case, and this lock is different than the ones that I usually pick open with the bobby pin. So I need to look at this lock a little closer to see if I can understand what the mechanism is that I need to release in order to open up this case. It doesn't take a standard key that I'm used to seeing.
Then let's... would that be investigation or would that be intellect? I'm going to say it's investigation.
Okay. Let's see. I got 3 successes, 2 or 6s. 4 total successes.
4 successes. Okay. Yeah, you are you're able to deduce the lock, and you are sure that you are not going to be able to do it with a bobby pin, though.
So I want to start looking around for a desk or some place that I think my father might be hiding the key to this case.
Okay, roll an intellect this time. This time,
Okay.
roll intellect.
1, 2, 3, 4. 4 total successes.
4 total successes. Okay. You are pretty sure that your father carries the key with him. But you think that you remember on top of the door frame that there's a hidden lever. You remember your father reaching up to the top of the door frame at one point growing up, and I don't think you were supposed to see it happen. You have this memory of your father running his hand along the top of the door frame.
Well, let's go check out the door frame.
Okay, roll an investigation check.
1 success.
The lever that you find, you're having kind of a hard time getting it to move because you're just not quite tall enough, you think.
Well, I know that my father keeps a small footstool back in the study room underneath his main desk because he likes to keep his feet elevated. Okay. So I'm going to quietly sneak back out of the study, leaving the door slightly ajar so it does not relock on me. I'm going to go back into the study. I'm going to, as carefully as I possibly can, grab the footstool, and I'm going to carry that back with me into the trophy room.
Okay, roll covert.
All right. I have 3 success, or no, let me roll my other 2. I have 4 successes. 1's a 6. I have 4 total successes.
Okay, tell me how you get in there and get back in, and what you do to get to the top of the door frame.
So I sneak back into the study. As I slink through the door from the trophy room into the study, I take a look around. It does appear that nobody's around, which is quite normal because people generally just aren't allowed in Father's study. I sneak around the carpets again, making sure that I'm leaving no trace behind. I go to his desk. I find the footstool. The footstool itself is quite ornamental. Its legs are also ivory, presumably from one of his elephant kills. I grab the stool. It is remarkably heavy. It's made out of solid cherry wood and ivory. And I'm sort of weak. So even this small object is a bit hard for me to carry around deftly, but I grab it and I hold it close to my chest and I begin to sneak back. As I approach the trophy room door, I obviously have to open the door wider this time in order to get through with the footstool.
Right.
And because I need to have access to the top of the door frame. So I open it just as slowly and quietly. This almost in my mind takes 35 minutes. I'm going so slow with only the focus that a child can have when they are literally
when they're sneaking a cookie from grandma's cookie jar.
You know, their hand is moving in micro millimeters per minute almost. So I go to painstaking effort in order to open the doorway just enough for me to be able to then stand on the footstool and reach up to try and find the lever on top of the door frame.
Okay. With the footstool, you are able to flip the lever. The glass doesn't move, but the base does. The base that the pipe is sitting on lowers about 8 inches so that you can reach your hand in and get the pipe. And the pipe smells of stale tobacco and leather, and it reminds you of your grandfather when you smell it. And so there's a little pang of guilt in your heart as you put your hands on it and take it, but then that quickly goes away because you're still really pissed off that your mom made you stay at the Evanson party on Sunday night. It was so hot, and she wouldn't let you take your jacket off, and your dad, had to take you in the other room, and he actually bopped you on the back of the head to get you to stay in line because you kept trying to mouth off to your mother, and all that just keeps running through your head, and you're just pissed. So that pang of guilt goes away.
She made me wear a red vest, which I hate. I only want to wear black all the time, and she made me wear a red vest, and I just can't stand it. It just makes me so mad.
And a red tie.
It just made me so angry. So angry.
Okay, so you get the pipe, and do you flip the switch back, or what do you do?
I want to leave the room, the trophy room, and the study as if I was never there, with the exception of the pipe being missing.
Okay.
So I want the lever to go back up. I want to make sure that I return the footstool back underneath my father's desk before I leave.
Okay, roll covert again then.
5 successes.
Okay, man. Tell us what you do to get out of the room.
The first thing I do, of course, is I step back on top of the footstool. I run my hand over the top of the door frame. I find the lever. I re-engage it. I watch as the base or the platform that the pipe was on raises back into the case. It sets naturally where it should, but of course, there's no pipe there. I, again, slightly shove the footstool out of the way and painstakingly close my father's study door in order and make sure that I hear the click of the lock behind me. I then take the footstool. I sneak so painstakingly around my father's desk where I have moved his chair out of the way. I place his footstool back in the exact place in which it came. I push my father's chair back into the exact location it was at his desk. And I approach the main doors to the study. I open up the main doors just enough for me to see out of it, just to make sure that there is nobody directly in front, or at least within the peripheral vision that I allow myself within this crack of the doorway. I don't see anybody. I open it up only about what feels like 3 or 4 inches, enough for me to slide my extremely thin, lanky frame out of the door and back into the main hallway, closing the door behind me and making sure I hear the click of the lock.
Nice. Okay, so you now have the pipe in your possession. The day goes on. Your mother comes home mid-afternoon. She greets you and asks you about your day. All of the normal rigmarole. She starts ordering up what will be for dinner. She changes clothes. She comes downstairs. She makes a cocktail for herself and your father. Your father comes home. He's usually home around 6 p.m. in the evening, and they're sharing a cocktail. You can smell food starting to come about, and the bell rings for dinner. You all go down to dinner, and you have this massive ornate dining room. It's all laid out. There are 3 people eating dinner, and there are 10 or 11 people attending you while you're eating dinner. And there's not much conversation during dinner. Your father, he doesn't really speak directly to you, but he's telling your mother a story about one of the wharfmen getting hurt as they were bringing in a load, and how unfortunate it was. But he didn't know that it was the company's fault. So he was going to do his best to help the man if it was necessary, but it's probably his own fault. You all finish dinner, and he excuses himself and makes his way towards the eastern wing. That after dinner, he goes to the study. And what he does in there, you're not really sure, but you know that after dinner, he goes to the study. And you see him head down the hallway, and your mother excuses herself from the room, and she goes upstairs. And what do you do?
I'm going to retreat to my room.
Okay.
And read a book and wait for wait for what I know is going to be, or at least what I believe is going to be, an epic meltdown from my father.
Yeah, it doesn't take long. You get upstairs and all of us, you know what I mean? You're not up there 10 minutes and you can hear the door to the study slam. I mean, and you're not close to it, but you know what I mean? It slams. It's a big, heavy door, and you can hear it slam.
Mm-hmm.
And you hear your father yelling, Edith! Edith! And then he starts calling, Edward! Edward! And your mother comes, What is it? What is it, dear? What is it? My pipe is missing! And Edward, who is the butler in the house, he's probably a mid-50s Black American man, and he hears pipe missing, and he immediately goes into action. You hear him calling out for the rest of the servants. There's a phone in your entryway, and he immediately goes to the phone and dials the police. And I mean, your house turns into chaos. Your father is furious and stomping. You have never seen him so mad. He is turning things over. He is yelling. He has gone into the sitting room and has started to tear cushions off of things and is screaming, We've been robbed! We've been robbed!
Can I maybe roll a well, let me ask you this. Did he leave the door to his study open?
No, he slammed the door closed.
But are the doors open?
Yeah. Or you don't know if it's locked or unlocked, but he slammed the door closed. That was what caught your attention first, is you heard that door slam.
Gotcha. Okay. I wasn't sure if that was the trophy room door.
No, that was the study door that you heard. You know what I mean? He was bellowing as he came out and slammed that door. I mean, he is turning over chairs. He is furious. He is yelling. Your mother is practically in tears because she hasn't, you know what I mean? She's never seen your father like this. He is so mad that he goes and grabs Edward by the jacket. How did you let this happen? How did you let this happen? You know what that means to me. And Edward is blubbering, and you know what I mean? And he's completely taken aback. Edward has been with your family, you know what I mean, longer than you've been alive.
Right.
Are you where are you watching this from? Because this is kind of happening. You have you know what I mean? You have a big foyer, and this is all kind of happening in the foyer. Are you in the room? Are you at the top of the stairs? Are you?
Yeah, I'm at the top of I'm at the top of a traditional spiraled staircase, and my bedroom sits on a mezzanine level, and I'm standing on the mezzanine, leaning on the railing and watching the chaos from above.
Okay. Yeah, your father has Edward by the jacket and is screaming in his face. I mean, damn near frothing at the mouth. And Edward is just floored. He's and your father is accusing Edward at this point of stealing it. How dare you? You son of a bitch! You let this happen! You took it, didn't you? You took it! You're the only one who knows where the spare key is! You're the only one! And Edward is, but sir, I would never, I know, I would never. And your father rears back and punches Edward in the face.
Oh my God.
And knocks him to the ground. The other servants have made their way into the foyer at this time, and they, you know what I mean, they see this happen, and several of the women yell. One of them rushes up to your father to try to get him off of Edward, and he shoves her to the ground. And your mother is screaming and crying at this point, and your father, never show your face here again. And he grabs Edward by the back of his jacket and flings him out the front door. Your mother is crying. She's begging your father, just let the police come. Let the police deal with this. Your father he's listening to no one. And he walks past your mother. He doesn't shoulder her, but only because she gets out of the way.
Is my nanny or the nursemaid who raised me for the most part in the room?
She was the one who ran up to your father trying to get him off of Edward and got shoved to the floor.
is the way that he's walking. She got shoved to the floor.
Yeah, she's the one that got shoved to the floor.
Okay, so I'm going to go down and comfort. I'm going to go down and comfort her.
Okay, not your mother. Okay,
not my mother.
Okay, your nanny. You know what I mean. She's already gotten herself up, but she's tears and she's trying to hold it in and she's trying to catch her breath and try to figure out what has happened. And you notice that as you're walking through the room, everyone is kind of milling about, and there was this kind of general hysteria in it. And you've walked into the room and you cross the room and you go to your nanny and you put your arms around her and she is smiling. Like you can feel this, you know how when you hug someone that's really upset and you can kind of feel their body change a little bit at the touch of someone else. And that's what you feel. You put your arms around her and you give her a hug and you can feel her mood change a little bit. She becomes a little brighter. She becomes a little happier and she puts her hand on your head and she tries to comfort you. She's like, it's okay. Your father, he's just very upset and he has every right to be. You know how important that pipe is to him. And she just catches her breath and she squeezes you a little bit harder and she puts her hands on your shoulders and kind of brings you out so she can look you in the face. And she starts smiling at you and she's still crying and it's a little strange. Like it doesn't make a lot of sense that she's this happy.
Yeah, I don't get that. That's weird. That's strange. I ask her what's going to happen to Edward.
Your father's put him out on the street. I don't know what's going to happen to him.
Does he have a place to go?
He has a family. He has a wife and he has some children, but they're older. I'm sure your father will come to his senses and will bring Edward back. I mean, it doesn't make sense. It just this whole thing doesn't make any sense. But she's still smiling at you as she says those things. But you know what? And as she keeps talking, you know what I mean? Like the happiness comes into her voice. But you know what? There's always a silver lining, isn't there? We've all learned something today, haven't we? So cheer up, child. I'm sure everything will come out just fine. We'll wait for the police and everything will be fine. Here, I must go and make sure that everyone else is okay. Okay, child? It's just, I love you. And with this big smile, she just kind of walks off and she starts tending, helping the other servants kind of clean up some of the room and get stuff around and you're left in the room by yourself. We're going to jump forward quite a bit. And there's another connection that you have later in life. As you grew into adulthood and became a hero, you became known as Saint Shadow, right? That's the moniker that you took on as a hero of Renaissance City. Saint Shadow is a Robin Hood type.
Yeah.
Maybe a little more entrenched in the seediness of the city than the traditional Robin Hood would be. But one of your major connections is a guy that everybody calls Jules, right? What do we know about Jules?
So Jules is a middle-aged man. He is a Black American. He runs a pawn shop in downtown Detroit. And as Al began to perfect his ability to take things and to steal things, he began to realize that he needed an ally that could help him fence some of those items. Because what he wanted to do was convert that into some sort of cash and then be able to help people that were less fortunate than him. And so he struck up a friendship with Jules. Now, Jules does not know Al's true identity. Everything is done through clandestine meetings, through covert communications. But Jules continues to help Al because Al lets Jules keep a significant cut when he does the fencing. And that has helped make Jules sort of unusually wealthy for a Black American man in Detroit in the 1920s.
Okay, awesome. So he knows you only as Saint Shadow. He doesn't know you as Alabaster Reginald Whitingale. How do you go about communicating with Jules? How would he get in touch with you?
So what typically happens is I will break into Jules' pawn shop when nobody is there. And it started off as me leaving him gifts that I didn't ask any money for. So I would take certain items that maybe I knew had some street value, and I would leave those in his pawn shop and not ask for anything.
Would you leave notes or?
Not at first. At first, I just left items. Over the course of a couple of months, then the note started.
Okay.
And I would leave a note with the item, and the note always said, please accept this gift, yours truly, Saint Shadow.
So you identified yourself, what, 6 months into it? 2 months? A year?
Yeah, probably 3 months. Probably 3 months.
3 months? Okay.
Yeah, about 3 months after leaving him gifts pretty steadily, maybe once every couple of weeks. So, I mean, at that point, I'd probably left him 8-10 gifts without any notes, and then started leaving him gifts with notes, not asking for anything, just saying, yours truly, Saint Shadow. After about a month of leaving those notes, Jules began leaving notes back for me. Sometimes he would thank me, sometimes he would ask why, etc. But eventually, he started leaving cash. I would leave an item and say, with the note that says, yours truly, Saint Shadow, and he would leave me cash that said, forever yours, Jules.
Forever yours. I love it. Okay. Forever yours. Great.
That is the only way that we know each other. And one of the reasons that I like and trust Jules is that he has never, ever made an attempt to meet me.
Okay. This communication that happens between the two of you is he doesn't wait up at night and try to catch you, to meet you or anything like that. This is all just been completely secret, handwritten notes. Blind trust.
Blind trust.
Okay.
Yep.
I dig it. Okay, so you've made a recent score. You've picked up just some. It's an old coin collection from another wealthy family, but you don't steal from this family all the time, but you do hit them up at least a couple times a year because...
Listen, the Wellingtons are the absolute worst.
The Wellingtons are the fucking worst.
They are the fucking worst out of all of my family's socialite friends. The Wellingtons are the most snotty, snobby, condescending, racist, just terrible, terrible people. And so I do tend to steal from them a bit more than perhaps any of my other family socialite friends.
Yeah. So you have taken this coin collection from the Wellington house, and you know that there's a decent amount of money in this. There's probably $8,000-$9,000 in just in this small book of coins. You make your way into Jules' shop and you leave your note. This time, it doesn't just say forever yours, Jules. This time it says Detroit Institute of Art, Roman Exhibition, November 11th. Forever yours, Jules. You had already heard that there was a Roman exhibition that was coming to the Detroit Institute of Art, and You've always kind of steered clear of the DIA because it's recently become publicly funded and they do a lot of things for the community and being who you are and the altruistic ideals that you hold. There's always been this kind of barrier that you have put up for yourself, and you haven't attempted to take anything from the DIA. When you get this note, I think that it kind of gives you pause. One, because this is the first time he's ever communicated anything to you. He's ever, you know what I mean? This is obviously some sort of request.
Right.
Although it's not really that specific a request. And two, whether he knows it or not, he's asking you to break one of your own personal rules and to steal from a place that you aren't necessarily comfortable stealing from.
So I'm going to contemplate that for a minute. And I decide to write a more specific note back.
Okay.
To Jules.
What does your note say?
My note says 80%. Yours truly, Saint Shadow.
Thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I'm going to take a minute and update you on our TTRP community and events, and then give props to other people in the RPG community that I think are doing and making awesome stuff. None of these are sponsors, just good people doing good things. The TTRP Twitch channel is live Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday nights with new streams joining the channel soon. High fantasy your thing? Join Beth as she takes her players through an updated version of The Red Hand of Doom, a 5e live play at 7 p.m. Central Time every Wednesday. Thor's days are for destruction, and Curtis takes a group through Princes of the Apocalypse live at 7 p.m. Central. Friday nights are for parties. We have 2 different games running Friday night. The first is Greyhawk City, Shadows of the Gem. It is a grimdark urban D&D 5e campaign in which I get to be on the other side of the table. Then starting at 10 p.m. Central, Curtis takes us into the depths of our own minds with Cult, Divinity Lost, a horror-inspired game set in Manhattan in 1990. Props. Get it? Is it a theater reference? No? Nobody? Props this week is for Ice Cream Dice. You can find them on all social media platforms. Mark started Ice Cream Dice with a wildly successful Kickstarter campaign, and he hasn't looked back. He is also the founder of an amazing charity group, Forging Heroes Society, that helps provide role-playing materials for school-aged kids all across Canada, and even some now in the United States. He is my brother from another mother, and I am proud of what he is doing for the RPG community, so get out and support him, and we all know that you need more dice. Jason Abramowitz is an actor, a writer, and a filmmaker. Get a copy of his new collection of poetry titled Purposefully Unintentional at Amazon.com. All music in the show was written by me, Duke Walter. I hope you enjoyed this first episode of Renaissance City. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Invisible Duke. Follow TTRP Theater on Facebook at TTRP Theater or on Twitter at Theater TTRP. And don't forget to follow and subscribe to our channel on Twitch. Thanks for listening, and come back next week when we pull back the curtain on our next hero.